The pain starts before you understand what it is. A deep, slow pressure, then a tightening that squeezes the air from your lungs, then another, and another. You are not in a hospital. There is no bed with rails, no anesthesiologist, no doctor with a clipboard and a plan. There is a fire, a circle of women, and the sound of wind moving through the grass outside. This is how your species has entered the world for roughly 300,000 years. Before epidurals, before sterile rooms, before the concept of a maternity ward existed in any form. Birth was not a medical event. It was a social one. And understanding what it actually looked like changes everything you thought you knew about human survival. Here's the number that should stop you cold. For the vast majority of human history, somewhere between 1 in 3 and 1 in 5, women died from complications related to pregnancy and childbirth. That is not a tragic anomaly. That is the baseline. That is what the human body faced for hundreds of millennia, and somehow, against those odds, your ancestors made it through. Every single generation. You are the product of an unbroken chain of survival that stretches back further than you can imagine. So what actually happened? The first thing to understand is that ancient humans did not give birth alone. This is critical. And it is one of the things that separates us from almost every other primate on the planet. Chimpanzees typically deliver in isolation. Gorillas do the same. But humans, from the very earliest evidence we have, gave birth surrounded by others, specifically surrounded by other women. Anthropologist Wenda Trevathan has spent decades studying what she calls cooperative breeding and the evolution of assisted birth. Her argument is elegant and sobering. The human infant, unlike the infant of nearly any other species, cannot exit the birth canal facing the mother. The rotation required means the baby arrives facing backward, away from her, which means if the mother tried to guide the infant herself, she could easily pull against the natural curve of the spine. She needs help. She has always needed help. Trevathan believes this is not a flaw. It is a design feature. Human birth evolved to require a second pair of hands, and in doing so, it wired social cooperation directly into our survival. Your female ancestors did not arrive at childbirth alone by accident. They arrived together because evolution made it necessary. But who were the women in that circle? Anthropologist Sarah Blaffer-Hrdy, whose work on cooperative child-rearing among early human groups has fundamentally reshaped how we think about the origins of human sociality, argues that the extended kin network around a birthing woman was not a luxury. It was the infrastructure of survival. Grandmothers, aunts, older sisters who had given birth before, women who had seen this before, who carried embodied knowledge of what to do when a labor stalled, when a baby arrived positioned wrong, when a mother was too exhausted to push. This knowledge was not written down. It was spoken, passed from woman to woman, birth to birth, generation to generation, a tradition of practical midwifery that predates any formal institution by hundreds of thousands of years. So picture it now. The group has been moving. They have been following game herds and seasonal plant sources across a landscape that stretches in every direction without a road, without a fence, without a landmark you would recognize. A woman in the group feels the first contractions. The group does not panic. They have seen this before. They find shelter, usually a protected space, a rock overhang, a thick stand of trees, somewhere the wind cannot reach. A fire is built. The women gather. There is no timetable. Labor in ancient humans, as in modern humans who are not induced, could last many hours, possibly more than a day. The women take turns. Someone rests while another stays close. Someone keeps the fire. Someone listens. Childbirth positions among hunter-gatherer societies studied in the modern era, groups whose lives most closely resemble the conditions our ancestors lived in, almost never involve lying flat on the back. That position, which became standard in Western obstetrics largely for the convenience of physicians, works against gravity. Ancient women gave birth squatting, kneeling, or supported from behind by another woman whose body became the chair. Gravity did the work. The group held the space. Now here's the twist you did not see coming. For much of recorded history, the moment when infant mortality rates actually rose sharply was not during the hunter-gatherer period. It was after agriculture. When humans settled into permanent villages roughly 12,000 years ago, when grain became the dietary foundation, when animals were kept in close quarters with people and children, rates of infection climbed. Infant death, maternal death, the spread of disease through dense populations. These exploded in the early agricultural period. Archaeologists examining skeletal remains from sites like the Çatalhöyük settlement in modern-day Turkey have found evidence of dramatically increased disease burden compared to the mobile foraging groups that preceded them. The settled life that we assume must have been safer was, by many measures, more dangerous. The women in the cave, surrounded by their circle, giving birth by firelight without a hospital in sight, may have had better odds than the farmer's wife in a crowded village 200 generations later. That is not a romantic fantasy. That is what the bones tell us. The infant, once born, was not handed to a nurse and wheeled to a separate room. The infant never left the mother's body, not for months. Continuous skin-to-skin contact is not a modern parenting philosophy invented by attachment theorists. It is the default state of the human infant for its entire evolutionary history. The warmth of the mother's body regulated the newborn's temperature. The heartbeat the infant had heard for 9 months continued. The colostrum, the thick, antibody-rich first milk, and began immediately. The whole group watched. The grandmother counted fingers. The children peered in from the edge of the firelight. And then something remarkable happened. The group moved on, not the next day, but within days or weeks, depending on the terrain, the season, the food supply. The mother carried the infant, constantly. In a sling made of hide or woven plant fiber, the baby pressed against her chest, her warmth, her smell. The infant's developing nervous system expected this. It had evolved to expect it. The rocking motion of a walking body is not something modern parents discovered calms infants. It is a signal that has been hardwired for hundreds of thousands of years. Movement means safety, means the group is moving, means we are alive and traveling together. Stillness, for a very young human infant, historically meant danger, and so the infant cries when set down, and so you walk the floor at 3 in the morning wondering what is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. The baby is ancient. The baby is running the same program it has always run. James Sussman, the anthropologist who spent years studying the Ju Huanzi San of the Kalahari, one of the most extensively documented contemporary forager groups, has described how their approach to infant care was embedded in the whole group's rhythm. There was no separation between the child and the community. The infant belonged to everyone in a meaningful sense. Multiple women might nurse a child who was not biologically theirs. Older children carried infants. Fathers held them. The concept of a nuclear family unit solely responsible for the development of a child is a relatively recent and, by the metrics of human history, unusual arrangement. Your ancestors raised children the way they hunted and gathered. Together. Every adult in the group had a stake. Every adult in the group contributed. So the next time you are exhausted, the next time someone tells you that raising a child is supposed to be manageable for 2 people in a house, the next time you feel like you are failing at something that should come naturally, consider this. The whole design of human child rearing assumed a circle of people. It assumed grandmothers nearby. It assumed the sound of other voices in the same space. The loneliness of modern parenthood is not a personal failure. It is a structural mismatch between the conditions your nervous system evolved for and the conditions the modern world actually provides. For 300,000 years, no one did this alone. You wake up when your body is ready. No alarm, no schedule, no place you need to be. And for 300,000 years, when the hardest moment of a human life arrived, neither did you face it alone. You were held by a circle. You were carried by a group. The fire was already burning when you got there. It still is. You just have to find your circle.